learning a course by Yisrael, and we're going to learn for the soldiers and for the captives that everybody should be safe. Specifically, there's a few people that the father of Fader, Michael Fader, David's brother, has two children who are heavily right now in combat. So he asked me if when we learn or say Tehillim, the boy's name is Natan ben Maya Malka, and the daughter's name is Batsheva Bas Maya Malka. Everything should be good for them. And Hashivenu guy who used to learn here, and now he's there, he's married, and there. His name is Yeshua Shlomo Halevi ben Blima Rivka. Everything should be good with him. Also Barak Netanel ben Leah Devara. Also, I was given this name from an organization called Shomer, where they give you the names of soldiers to daven for. Binyamin Meir ben Rachel Pessi. And finally, a good close friend of mine, Cliff Wachtel, has two sons-in-law who are fighting, Yoshua Moshe ben Michal and Avichail Shlomo Usher David ben Shelley Sarah. And Eitan Dov Ben Mother.
Oh, Mother?
Rina Bracha. Yeah, we don't want to go with the other way. So listen to this. This is crazy. This is I saw this, and this is a very highly sensitive thought. In Noach in the table, right? Noach's in the table. There's a bird that flies out. What was the bird? The first time a bird flies away. It's the Yonah. It says, "V'lo motza Yonah menoch lekaf raglav," and the Yonah didn't find a place to rest its feet because it was still, water all over. Vateshev elov el hateva, so it went back to the table. Kimayim al pnei haaretz. Why? Because there was water all over the world. Vayishlach yod. So that's what it says. So there's the next pasuk goes to show you a certain level of sensitivity, which is just crazy. This was given by Rav Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin and Netziv. The pasuk says, "Vayishlach yodo," and Noach went and he stuck out his hand. Vayikcha, and he took the bird. Vayavo osa elov elateva, and he brought the bird into the teva, which means that the bird flew near the teva, but didn't go back in the teva. And the Netziv learned from this that sometimes you send somebody to do something for you. Let's say you have a Mexican worker, a nice guy. Doesn't have to be Mexican. It could be any type of worker. I don't know why I said Mexican. Say no. You just hired somebody from Mexico and from Honduras, and the guy means well. He really does well, but he doesn't accomplish what you want him to do. So we're supposed to learn from this pasuk to go and take him, make him feel good. Yes, he didn't do what you wanted. He knows that. You know that. Everybody knows that. But you still have to treat a worker in the proper way with respect, even if he doesn't accomplish what you want. We're not talking now about workers that are being dishonest and stealing and not working, the amount of time that they're supposed to be. We're talking about a guy, he does his best, and it just didn't work well. So the Netziv says about this, that you see from here that you really have to be careful, because a worker can get very sensitive and really feel like he's giving it all, and he's just not. He just wasn't successful. Not necessarily his fault. Let's talk a little bit about this situation. So you guys have heard of Rav Gamliel Rabinowitz, right? We all know Rav Gamliel? A little bit. Rav Gamliel is this big Mekubal. He is the Rosh Yeshiva of the Yeshiva HaMekubalim, the Mekubal Yeshiva in Jerusalem, Shar Shemayim. He is like real. This is not one of those hokey Mekubalim that you're saying to yourself, like, I don't know, like sometimes when you're driving on the highway or on the road and you see on Queens Boulevard and it says, reader, and it says Ruth, the reader, and you're saying to yourself, like, if you're so good at this, then why don't you know the lottery ticket numbers? If you're so good at reading everything, you shouldn't have to have a little dinky office in the middle of Ridgewood. You should be, have some other type of location. So when it comes to Kabbalah, sometimes you don't know if they're real or not, and sometimes they are charlatans, they are fake. But Gamliel is not. He's a major Mekubal. So he says that people asked him all the time, like, what should we be working on? And Rav Gamliel said, and I'm telling you right now, I am a pretty chilled guy. In general, I'm pretty chilled. But since the onset of this war, I have not been so chilled. I feel the genie of anger sometimes, or edginess. I don't have anxiety. Does anybody here other than me not have anxiety? In general? You don't have anxiety generally, do you?
No.
Anybody? Yeah, this one certainly doesn't have anxiety. Okay, you don't have anxiety? I don't have anxiety, but I have a little bit. I'm feeling it coming up in the chest sometimes. So Rav Gamliel said that the Gemara, it's fascinating, the Gemara says that during the time of Achav was the most evil, he is known as the most evil king of Israel, of the north. He was actually of the north of Israel. But when we think about an evil king in Jewish history, Achav is who we think about usually. Bad. The Gemara says that his army was loaded with idolaters, and yet they were successful. While Shaul's army was loaded with righteous tzaddikim, and they were not successful in battle. So the Gemara says, why is that? You would imagine that Shaul's army, loaded with tzaddikim, they should be successful, and Achav not. And the Gemara says, because there was shalom between the soldiers of Achav, and there was not shalom between the soldiers of Shaul. And therefore, Rav Gamliel learns from that. He says, like, shalom in the house is such a big deal. And right now, I gotta tell you, you guys don't understand, because you never had a fight with your wife. Okay, you never had in your whole life. You don't even know. You're getting married. He's getting married a week from tonight. Wow, so you should not listen to this, because husbands and wives never fight and they never bicker. It never happened. It never happened. You're getting married in a couple of weeks. No such thing. Husbands and wives are only, they walk down all day long. Everybody is just in heaven. There's no, and the wives, by the way, the wives never correct. By the way, you know that, right? Everybody knows that the wives never correct the husbands. Never. It's an amazing thing. Never. All they do is whatever the husband says that they like, the wife says, yes, dear, please, of course. How do they say that in Georgian? Yes, dear. Yeah, that's the answer. Okay. Yeah, so he said that Shalom Bayis is such a hard thing right now because there's so much tension inside, and like the reaction is you just react. So Rav Gamliel said that it says that if you yell down here on this earth at your wife, at your children, if you yell, then in heaven, in Shemayim, they yell at you. And then Rav Gamliel said, we do not want anybody yelling at us. Bad. So we all have to work super extra on it. So that's one thing. Then I want to tell you a story that happened with me and the Lubavitcher Rebbe, because I think it's a second issue. So on one side, we have to really keep the peace and make sure we don't lose the temper. How many people can say that they've lost their temper recently? Just me. That's it. Nobody else. Okay. Okay. Now,
Chill as can be.
chill. He's a chiller. I'm telling you, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it in there. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. I'd really be careful about this. So, then there's the other angle. Even though we are anxious and even though we're nervous about everything, we can't let the kids and the wives and everybody know that we're scared. Because the leader, and every one of us, is a leader in the family. And that's not because male, female. Your wife is also a leader in the family. She also shouldn't let the kids feel like the fear and the anxiety of what's going on. But it's very important because the kids pick it up. They really know. So you have to really, be in control with yourself. So I want to tell you a story that happened. And I'm married. And at that time, we're going back 38 years ago. And I used to go to all the big Lubavitch, and I lived here, but I went to yeshiva in Brooklyn. And I used to go to all the big Lubavitcher Farbringans. But the Rebbe used to give a Farbringen every Shabbos. But that was like a local small. When I say small, the people in Crown Heights, I'll make up a number, 5,000 people. You know what I mean?
Small.
Yeah, small. No, I mean, I'm saying the word 5,000 because that's how many people live in Crown Heights. Maybe it was 3,000. Okay, but that's what it was, a local, And then from time to time, you have the big Farbringans, like Yud-Tes Kislev. You know Yud-Tes Kislev is? That's the Rosh Hashanah for the Balatanya got out of jail. That is like the 4th of July for Hasidim, Then you have other, for me?
I think it went to a call. I don't know if it turned off, if it was recording.
Well,
Okay.
we'll find out. It works. So the Rebbe would have these big Farbringans. The big Farbringen would have 10,000, 15,000 people at it. They had a system where you would rent a radio, a portable radio if you didn't have one, an FM, and within the radius of like 4 or 5 blocks, you could listen to the Farbringen on the radio. If you put on in those days, in the car, they had FM radios. Can you imagine? FM radios? You put on the FM radio and you would hear WLLC, the Lubavitch, LCC, the Lubavitch Communication Corporation, and then you'd hear the Rebbe. That's what happened, So I used to push, like everybody else. I used to push and push to get in to all the people. You did that, or you weren't around during those days? Pushed like a horse to get into the Rebbe. One day I said to I just realized, hey, I go back and forth to Brooklyn every day. The Rebbe davens Mincha and Ma'ariv right next to his office. He had in 770 he had an office, and right next to his office there was a little base medrash. The little base medrash was about a third of this room. I'd say about a third of this room. And the Rebbe used to daven Mincha and Ma'ariv there. Now here comes the kicker. The real Hasidim didn't daven with the Rebbe because it's like, you don't want to get too close to the Rebbe. It's not coveted. So you had the Bachrim, but they wouldn't sit right next to the Rebbe. The Rebbe davened in the corner. The way it was in the corner, let's say this was the corner of the room, the Rebbe would daven there, and then you'd have like 5 rows were empty because nobody wanted to get close to the Rebbe, except for moi. I decided, what am I doing? Pushing my head to get into 770, and if I bring in, getting trampled on, you know what I mean? Why am I, 1 second please. Hi toes. Good night, cutie pie, you're the best, bye-bye. Why in the world should I break my head when I can go daven with the Rebbe? And once I'm there already, why not sit next to the Rebbe? So I sat literally like I'm sitting from here to you. Because you can't really sit next to him, you know what I mean? And like say, do you have any notes you want to give me? You can't do that, like have a tissue maybe? You can't do that. But you could sit right there. Yeah. So I literally was like from here to where you are. So I would see the Rebbe's little curls. He had curly hair that you would see under his hat, and I would just see things because I was like, I would do this a couple times a week, and I noticed something. This is very strange, and I confirmed this with somebody this week. When the Rebbe would stand up for Shemona Esrei, well, first of all, he didn't daven long. It was really fast. It was faster Shemona Esrei than I daven. It was like, and he wasn't winding up. You ever see the people in a big wind up or the propeller? No, he didn't do that. He was like very, like that, and it was quick. But when he had a stender, and the stender, he would have his hands on the stender like this, and I didn't really pay attention to it, but I did notice that he didn't have his hands on the stender. And then one day, he opened up his hand, and it was shaking. And I don't know, because I didn't ask the Rebbe, like, hey, is that why you're doing this? But to me, it was like a father that doesn't want to show his kids his weakness, Father doesn't want to let the kids know that he's like, I don't want to, that he's getting old, So to me, that's what the Rebbe was doing. Because the Hasidim would have gotten really freaked out if they saw his hands going like that.
What year was that?
This is right before he got sick. And this is in the upper 80s, like 87, 88. He wasn't a youngster in those days, So
people with Parkinson's, like this shit.
He didn't have Parkinson's, but as you get older, So I'm just saying, to me, that was a message of how do you relate to your children, to your students? Do you let them, do you tell your kids tomorrow morning? I don't know, because when I grew up, we were worried about nuclear war, so we were told to go under the tables in school. It's true. But listen, little Yossi, who's 5 years old, we might have a nuclear war, so I don't know what to tell you, because the table's not going to help. So I don't know. You know what I mean? So you don't want to do that to the kids. You have to protect them, that they shouldn't be nervous either. By the way, that's true. We used to have drills in it was in the 60s. You'd have drills to go under the tables. Do you know about this? Go online. Yeah, this is really true. You'd go under the tables, and they also had in the public schools, there were, public schools that were designated as nuclear shelters, and they'd have that yellow sign in the black box. Yeah, that's really going to help going into a public school for if there's a nuclear war. Oh yeah, it's going to really, really help the situation. Okay, so what I want to do now, we got two things we're going to accomplish today. The first, I'm going to do it a little bit inside and a little bit outside. Okay? I'm going to read you the Rashi. If you want to follow along, please. We're going to read the Rashi together. We're going to hear the question, because the question is as clear as daylight. This question has been bothering me for about 40 years, or at least 30 years. And to compound the question, I'm going to tell you outside a famous Gemara that I've already taught you guys. And then I'm going to tell you what the Lubavitcher Rebbe says about it, and I can read it to you. It's even better. We'll read it to you inside, because it's really a good answer. Okay, so it says over here, let's just read it together. The first pasuk. Ela told us, Noach, this is the history. Somebody there? Ela told us, Noach, these are the generations of Noach. And then it says Noach is tzaddik. Noach was a righteous man. He's a tzaddik. And then it says Tamim hoya b'dorosov. He was perfect in his generation. That's what it says. Okay? Rashi asks a question here. It says that Noach was perfect in his generation. So Rashi is going to focus on that extra word. If I say that Ari is the strongest in his generation, so you would probably say, why does it say generation? What is the meaning of the word generation? It seems like an extra word. It should just say that Noach was a tzaddik. Why does it say the word in his generation? It's a famous question. So if you look at Rashi, Bidorosav, that's the second Rashi, he says, Yesh me Rabosenu Dorshim Oso Lishvach. They are those people that when they talk about Noach, they talk about it they give him a compliment that certainly if he was in a different generation, in his generation he was a tzaddik, but if he would be in a different generation, oh my gosh, he'd be such a tzaddik. So in other words, if you're a tzaddik in Gaza, right, then you're going to be a real tzaddik in Yerushalayim. That's the idea. If you're able to be a tzaddik in his generation where everybody was all messed up, then certainly you're going to be a tzaddik in a time period where everybody is really good. So that's one way of looking at it. The other way is lignai. The other way is negatively. Sure, he was a tzaddik where he was. In Gaza, he was a tzaddik because he wasn't going around and raping and killing people. But that doesn't mean that if he would be in the generation of Avraham that he'd be considered such a tzaddik. It's in his generation. So for that, he's considered tzaddik. Okay? You've heard this interpretation. How do you look at it? How do you look at Noah? Which way? So we have a problem with that. What is the problem? There's a problem with this whole thing. Now, again, we have two people, Rab and Shmuel. One says that, he was a tzaddik and his generation, and if he would be in another time, in a better place, he would have been better. But the other one says, and if he would have been if he was in his generation, he was a tzaddik, but in another generation, he'd be a nothing. He'd be nothing. So what's the problem with this? Maybe I'm not explaining it well. The problem is, we'll go with the question. I'll give you the question, and then maybe it'll fit in. We have an idea that you have to give people the benefit of the doubt. You're obligated to to judge somebody favorably. It says, you must give a fellow Jew the benefit of the doubt. So here you have a person who the Bible says that God says that he is a righteous person. He's a tzaddik. And you have two ways of judging him. One way is to say, he was righteous where he was, and you know what? He'd even be better in another situation, in a different generation. That's one way of doing it. The other way is to say, where he was righteous, but really he wasn't so good, and compared to somebody from a different place, he'd be nothing. So why judge Noach in a bad light? Why judge him unfavorably? Do you have the question or not so well? Let's do it again. You got two ways to look at Noach. Noach could have been better in a different generation, or he was good where he was. He would have even been better. The other way is to say he wasn't so good. He wasn't so good, really. It's just where he was in the middle of a sewer. He was better than other people, but he really wasn't that good. So that's the question. I don't know if you guys like the question so much. The answer of the Lubavitch Rebbe is, we're going to go to the next subject, the next one. But the answer the Rebbe said is that you got to give people the benefit of the doubt. But there was a problem that Noah had, and that was that he didn't go and daven for the people to do tshuva. He did not do that. And because he didn't do that, we want to judge him favorably, but you can't entirely judge him favorably because we have to go beyond our little four corners of the world, and we have to see the bigger picture. But this did not go down that you don't like this question so much. I can feel it's not getting you. So we'll go on to the next thing. The Gemara says over here, and then there's another line. It says that Noach was Miktane Amuna. Rashi says that he didn't really believe so much. It says that he believed, but he didn't really believe so much. Miktane Amuna. That's what Rashi says. Let me ask a question. Why didn't Noah act like Abraham? Abraham is told by God that Sodom is going to be destroyed, right? Abraham is told that Sodom is going to be destroyed. Now, the people of Sodom were antithetical to Abraham. Abraham spends his whole life doing chesed, right? Making soup kitchens. He does everything he can to help society, even people who are really bad. I mean, think about the Sodom people. They had the Sodom beds, right? You remember in school they told you about the Hachnosas Orchim, of Sodom, that they had these beds. If the guy was tall, they would chop off his legs when he would come to their house. Do you remember that? No?
Kindergarten.
You remember?
Okay.
You don't remember?
First grade, second.
Okay, and then they have the other beds. If the guy was short, they stretch his legs, right?
Right.
The Gemara says that there was once a woman, and she did the terrible, terrible sin that they had a law in Sodom that if anybody from the outside would ask for a favor, you weren't allowed to give them anything. So somebody came to this woman and asked her for some salt. So, and this is in Sodom, the Dead Sea. There's a hell of a lot of salt down in the Dead Sea in that area. So she gives the guy a little salt. They found out about it, and they stripped her and put honey all over her body and put her on the roof of the house, and she was stung to death. That's the good people of Sodom. So Abraham goes, and Abraham prays for the people of Sodom that maybe God doesn't want to kill them because maybe there are some good people there. So Abraham's going and he's praying, and yet you have Noach, and what's Noach doing? Noach didn't pray for the people. Why not? Why not? What was going on? So the Kedushas Levi says that he had low self-esteem. He had no confidence. When it says that he didn't believe, it's talking about believing in himself. He didn't believe that he had the power to change the world and that his prayers could actually influence God's desire to do things. Not desire, but that he could influence God. He did not believe that about himself. And therefore, he didn't even try because he didn't believe that it would do anything at all. So we have to learn from that we could, that we absolutely could. Now here comes the Gemara. We're going to do the Gemara at the end. That I told you that somebody stopped me with a question. Okay, page 2 that you all have. This is a famous Gemara in Sanhedrin. The Gemara in Sanhedrin is talking. It's okay.
Just look.
The Gemara Sanhedrin over here is talking about world famous converts. Okay, and the Gemara says that there are a bunch of people who came from really, really bad places, and they converted, and their children became very, very, very famous. Okay, so we're gonna read this Gemara because this guy asked me a question. Okay, I'm gonna read it to you. It's on the bottom here. The 2 dots, 2 lines. It's the second line from the second fat lines. It says Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis learned. That's 4 lines, four from the end of the second line. So the Gemara says over here, Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis learned. Nevuz, yeah. It says Namon ger Toshav Hoya. This person Namon who Nevuzaradin ger Tzedek Hoya. Do you guys know who Nevuzaradin was? Nevuzaradin. Okay, the first temple is being destroyed. Nevuzaradin is the general who destroyed the first Beis Hamikdash. Okay, he goes into the Beis Hamikdash and he sees the parochas, and there's blood that's coming out of it, and the blood is literally boiling, it's bubbling. And he asks, what's going on here? And they told him that this was the blood of some animals. He didn't believe it. And he started slaughtering people. And he goes down in history that he killed tens of thousands of people. He was known as the butcher of the first Beis Hamikdash, the butcher. He is terrible. Totally, he's like the equivalent of like Hitler or all these guys. All of a sudden, he decides that he's going to convert. And he goes and he converts. And it's a crazy, crazy thing. From him, there's another person called Sisera. Sisera attacked Israel. And he also goes and he converts. And his grandchildren learn Torah. And his grandchildren were people called Shemaiah and Avtalion, who were the Rebbes, they were the Rebbeim of Hillel and Shammai. Then the Gemara says that the grandchildren of Haman, they converted, and they learned Torah in Bnei Brak. So you got yourself the butcher who destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, who did the actual fighting. Nebuchadnezzar, who goes down as the king, he didn't do this. He didn't do the dirty work. He had this guy Nebuchadnezzar who converted. You have the Haman converts to Judaism. Not him, his grandchildren. And then the Gemara says that even Nebuchadnezzar wanted to convert, but God said, no, can't do that. Can't do that. So this guy said to me, if the head of ISIS or the head of, that's what this is. These guys were they were the same as Hitler. These people, that's what they were. If they wanted to convert, would we convert them? Would we convert them? Now, we're talking about a sincere conversion, obviously. We're not talking about them falling in love with some girl from a kibbutz that they just didn't kill. But seriously, would we convert them? Gemara seems to say, yeah, if this was serious. Now, I don't know any bezin that would do it. I can't imagine anybody walking in from Hamas into the Badatz of Yerushalayim and say, listen, okay, I'm ready for you to cut me. Give me a bris. I can't imagine. Maybe they would give him a bris. He's already thinking we could make a new mitzvah of giving bris milah to Hamas members that want to convert. Yeah, well, but I'm serious. There's no nation on this earth that would ever accept such people that did such damage to their nation to come into their nation, assuming they're legitimate. This Gemara is telling us that they were legitimate people, but they became part of the Jewish nation eventually. So it's a very interesting thing. The Maharal talks about this, like, why would God let this happen? That they could convert, that their great grandchildren or whatever could convert. And he says, this is very interesting. He says that these evildoers had a lot of power. They had a lot of creativity. When you think about the evilness of some of these people, it's diabolical, but it is in some way genius in some way. So Hashem wants that genius in a kosher way. The knowledge, genetically, it's passed down from father to son. These, the ability to, be creative and if the people do tshuva, if they do tshuva and they can bring those energies with them for the sake of heaven, then God says that's a good thing if they're really sincere. Is that a crazy thought? A little crazy, a little out there. But it is there. It's never going to happen practically. But I just wanted to raise that thought to everybody. Yeah. Okay, we'll stop on that.
We have to raise our thoughts. We have to raise our thoughts.
What?
Now we have to raise our thoughts. We need a little higher wisdom.
Yeah, we have to take the wisdom that we got from our parents, and we have to bring it to.
You know, the first time I davened in was
Joey, thank you for coming.